Okay, hi everyone. This is Gemara review video number 4. We are still on Daf Bet Amud Aleph, Berakhot 2a. Last time we did the beginning of the Gemara, the first part of the Gemara there, and now we are going to do the second part of the Gemara. So just a quick review connection. In our previous Gemara, aka Gemara review video number 3, we discussed basically how the Mishnah decides to learn or discuss Kriyat Shema at night before Kriyat Shema during a day. We talk about night before the day, and we gave 2 reasons for that. We said the pasuk about Kriyat Shema says B'shifcha v'kumecha. We talk about lying down before we talk about getting up, so night comes first. And then we also gave a nice proof from Briato Shel Olam, from the creation of the world, that we talk about God creating night before day. So night kind of comes first before day, which makes sense if we think about it in Judaism, right? We always start our days at night, right? It's a night comes first. The days kind of start at night, and then they continue the day, unlike in the secular calendar. But now we have a challenge alert, and the Gemara we are about to read is going to challenge that idea that it makes sense to talk about the night before day. And it's going to challenge it by bringing another Mishnah, a Mishnah actually later on in Masechet Berakhot, where actually in that Mishnah, it is going to discuss day before night. So how can it be that we're supposed to talk about night before day if we have a totally different Mishnah coming and not listening to that rule and discussing day before night? So that is the challenge that we are about to see in the Gemara. Okay, so we are going to look at our Gemara over here. We are starting right where we left off from Ihachi, going all the way until the 2 dots of the Arvit, Berakhot Bet Amud Aleph, page 2a on Berakhot. Okay, we are starting off with a kushia. We are starting off with a challenge on the answer we saw before, that we are supposed to list night before day. Here we go. Ihachi, if so, and we're going to divide this answer up into this challenge up into 3 kind of sections. So if so, Ihachi is a good kind of transition word to know that we're coming up with a challenge. Here we go. So Ihachi, if this is true, if so, let's continue reading. Seifa diktani. What about what is taught? We know already, right, that the word ktani means to teach in the Mishnah, and Seifa means the second part or the later part. Reisha means first, and Seifa means second. I'm actually just going to write that down here. Reisha is the first, and Seifa means second, or kind of like at the end. So, Ihachi, if this is true, that we're supposed to do night before day, Seifa diktani, what about the later part of the Mishnah that teaches the following? And now we're going to bring a quote from a later on Mishnah in Masechet Berakhot. It's actually on page Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. It's actually a Mishnah that we're going to see later on. It comes up on page 11a, a later Mishnah in Berakhot. So this is basically a cut and paste from there as a challenge. So let's read, and we can even put maybe even quotation marks. Just remember, this is not a pasuk, so I'm only going to put 1 quotation mark. This is a copy or an excerpt from a Mishnah. And this is going to go all the way to Lachara. So let's read this copy, this excerpt here from the Seifa, from the later on Mishnah in Masechet Berakhot, that's going to challenge this idea that night comes before day. Here we go. Okay. B'shachar mivarach shtayim lefaneha ve'echat le'achareha. Put a comma over here. We'll just kind of finish reading the section, then I'm going to go back and translate. Uba erev mivarach shtayim lefaneha ve'shtayim le'achareha. So this is an excerpt we said from a later on Mishnah and Berakhot, and it is talking about something called Berakhot Kriyat Shema, the Berakhot that we say around Kriyat Shema. Now, if you remember the last time you davened Shacharit, or the last time you davened Arvit, remember, we don't just do Shema and Shemona Esrei and call it a day or call it a night, but there are actually a couple of blessings, a couple of Berakhot that we say before we say Kriyat Shema, and a couple of Berakhot that we say right after Kriyat Shema before Shemona Esrei. So you can see them in a Sidur. We're actually going to do a little bit more analyzing of them a little bit later, because the Gemara is going to do that. But for now, you can check in the Siddur where we have some Berakhot before and after. So this is what this Mishnah is talking about. And it says, B'shachar, in the morning, Mivarach shtayim lefaneha, you say 2 Berakhot before it. It here is Kriyat Shema. You say 2 Berakhot before Kriyat Shema. Ve'echatz la'achareha, and 1 bracha after Kriyat Shema. Uba Erev, and at night, Mevarach Shtaim Lefaneha, you say 2 brachot before Kriyat Shema at night, Ushtaim La'achareha, and 2 brachot after it. Okay, that's a nice kind of quote from this Mishnah, but how is this helping our Kushia? How is this helping our challenge? So our last section that we will read over here of our Kushia says over here, let's make sure I can highlight it. Here we go. Litni to Arvit Beresha. It actually gives a period, but I'm going to adapt this into an exclamation point because we're going to be very dramatic here. Litni, it's that same shoresh of Ketani of teach, but litni means let us teach. It's making a suggestion. And saying over here, this Mishnah, right, what can we learn from this Mishnah? This Mishnah seems to be putting day before night, right? It talks about the laws of the Berakhot of Kriyat Shema during the day, and only later on, it goes to the Erev, it goes to the night. So we're saying, wait a second, if we're supposed to do night before day, let's need to Arvit Beresha. It really should teach first about the Berakhot of Kriyat Shema at night, and after, talk about the Berakhot of Kriyat Shema during the day. If we're supposed to put night before day, why is this Mishnah putting day before night? And that is our Kushia. Okay, now for the last 2 sections of this Gemara, we're going to have a teirutz. Don't worry, we're going to have a resolution. We're going to have an answer to this. So let's see our answer, which we're going to have. We're going to split here into 2 parts. So in answers, we're going to switch to yellow for our teirutz. Here we go. Tana petach be'arvit v'hadar Tani b'shacharet. We'll put kind of a comma over here. So the resolution starts off, the Tana means the rabbi in the Mishnah. So what's the Gemara's resolution? It says, the rabbi in the Mishnah, the Tana, patach ba'arvit. He started talking about night. V'hadar Tani b'shacharet. Hadar means to go back or next. So at first, he started talking about night, and then he talked about day. That's our first Mishnah, right? First we talked about first we kind of started talking about the Kriyat Shema at night, and then kind of later on, it's going to go on and talk about the day. Now it says Ad Dekai b'shacharet. We'll kind of highlight this last part over here. Ad Dekai b'shacharet, parish milei deshacharet, v'hadar parish milei de'arvit. So we said that Tana started teaching with the night, and then he went to teach about the morning. And Ad Dekai b'shachar, once he was already teaching about morning, right? Once he was already, parashir means perush, to explain. Once he was already teaching about the morning, Hadar parish Ad Dekai b'shacharit. Once he gets to morning, parish milei deshacharit, right? Once he was already dealing with the morning, he explains more things concerning the morning Kriyat Shema. And finally, Hadar parish milei de'arvit. And then he went back to talk about night. That was very confusing. What exactly is the Gemara's answer? The Gemara's answer is basically rejects the challenge, says no. We always start with night, and then we talk about the day. So how come this later Mishnah we're talking about day before night? Because it's really a continuation of all the Mishnayot we've been seeing. And he explains it the following way. He says, really, we started off in our Mishnah talking about the night. Then once we were talking about the night, the rabbi in the Mishnah, and the later Mishnah, goes on to talk about Kriyat Shema during the day, which gets us to our Mishnah. And once he starts off talking about Kriyat Shema of the day, he continues to talk about a little bit more about Kriyat Shema of the day. And then once he's done talking about Kriyat Shema of the day, he returns to talking about night. Here, we'll pause. I'm going to show you a little bit of a chart. Okay, so here's a chart that hopefully kind of explains what the Gemara's resolution is. So basically what the Gemara is doing is it's saying we have to kind of look at all of the Mishnahs that get discussed in Gemara Berakhot. And we have to look at them all together. It's not just that, okay, some put night before day and some put day before night, but they're all actually all part of an order coming together. And he looks at it this way. He says, first, we have the Resha, which is the Mishnah, our Mishnah on the very first page, which starts talking about the laws of Kriyat Shema at night, right? That's what we saw on page 2a, right? This is our Resha Mishnah on 2a, right? And then we had kind of like our, the challenge Mishnah. This was the Seifa, right? The Mishnah from the challenge, which is on Daf 11a, where we had more stuff starting with the day and then talking about night, right? And that was kind of our challenge. And the way he kind of finishes talking about it is he says there actually was a Mishnah in the middle was a middle Mishnah. We don't have to worry about it exactly, but it happens on, we actually comes up in our Gemara on Daf Tet Amud Aleph and Daf 9a, where we talk about Kriyat Shema during a day. So how does this all come together? He basically is answering, the Gemara is answering this challenge by saying it's not about day versus night or night before day, but we still put night first. But what happens in the order of the Mishnah? That the rabbis in the Mishnah decide to start with night first, and then on a later page, right, they start talking about a day. And now that they're already talking about the day, they're going to continue talking about the day. That's our Mishnah. That's the challenge Mishnah. And then once we're finished with the day, we're going to come back to night. So it's a little bit of gymnastics, a little bit that's going on here. And it's saying that it's not that, okay, one Mishnah does night and then day, and the other Mishnah does day before night. But really, the whole order is night, day, day, night. We're still starting with night first, but you can't just look. I'll just kind of highlight over here. You can't just look at the Mishnah and the challenge and say, oh, wait a second, it's talking about day before night, because it's part of the whole Mishnah as a whole. And the whole Mishnah as a whole is really starting off with night, then day, then day, then night. And that's basically the order that of all the Mishnayot and Masachet Berakhot. So really, it's still, with all of this being said, it's still starting with night. So night still comes before day, but the order of Berakhot is night, day, day, night. Which, if you want to use a fancy Tanakh word, it's actually called a chiastic structure, but you'll talk about that in your Tanakh classes, don't worry about it now. But it means, that's like where you do like A, B, B, A, right? That you start off with something, but you have other things in the middle. So it's saying that that's basically the structure of our Mishnah. Okay. I know that was a little bit confusing, so that's why I typed it out for you. And you can pause here and see, how it explains, especially I know the answer was a little bit confusing over here, right? When we said over here, the Tana started teaching with night, then went to teach about morning. Once he was already talking about the morning, he explains more stuff about the morning, right? And then we'll pause and look at the last little box. And then this was the last little box, right? And then he goes on back to explain about night. So again, it's not that it's not, well, right over here, right? It's not that it's night before day versus day before night, and we don't know which one it is. Should we start with night or should we start with day? But really the order is the following. We start off with the night always, then we go to the day. Then once we're already talking about the day in our Mishnah, right, the challenge Mishnah, we continue talking about the day, then finished at night. But at the end of the day, we still start with night first.